everybody in my family kind of worked, for my dad and building houses. And this is kind of what we lived and breathed. This business is hard enough as it is, so you want to do something that you're really interested in. I kind of grew up with the entrepreneurial, self-employed, it was never a job.
Welcome everybody to another episode of our show. Today's guest is joining us from California, not Arizona today. And his name is Scott. He is the owner of Soul Construction. And if I'm not mistaken, Pismo Beach, right?
That's right, yeah.
Scott, what's going on? Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, nice to be here, man. It's been nice to meet you.
Super stoked to have you on. I know that you and I have kind of had some conversations just kind of about the type of construction business that you are running, and you have a bit of a unique story as it relates to kind of what got you into the trades in the first place, and how a time of sleeping on the beach has kind of led you to building the business that you've built today.
Right.
And so first and foremost, man, talk to me about that. Like what kind of led you to spend some time at the beach and open this construction company?
Well, I mean, it's been a long time coming. I mean, I grew up in the trades. I'm a third generation builder. On the East Coast, I grew up, and working for my father's company, which basically built large custom homes. They're all basically second homes, vacation homes on the lake, 10,000 square foot plus homes. So
Nice.
Basically everybody in my family kind of worked, for my dad and building houses. And this is kind of what we lived and breathed. So I got into the trades pretty earlier, had the privilege of being on some really nice construction sites and seeing them start to finish. So I did that, and then, kind of one summer when we wrapped up a big project on the lake, it'd been 16 or 18 months that we'd been working on it. I kind of got in my mind, I said, well, these are awesome houses, and this is great. It's a pretty area, but, I saw these houses that are building out in California and these houses in Malibu on the cliffs, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go give that a shot. So over the course of one weekend on 4th of July, I kind of just made the decision and packed up my truck and hit the road. So I had traveled a lot. I'd been to a lot of countries and had been to the West Coast before, but I drove out just with kind of Malibu in my mind. And 5 days later or whatever, I showed up there, was driving around, and it was all kind of gates, and didn't really know how to get in or how to meet anybody, and ended up driving up to Santa Barbara, and it was a Fiesta weekend, and I kind of just rolled right into that, and I spent a day there, and I said, oh man, I don't think I'm ever going to leave here. So I was sleeping on the beach. I didn't have a place, and didn't have a lot of money. I was just but I was young and I could do that. So I spent a week there and kind of reached out to a couple people. I found an ad in actually Calvary Chapel. The guy was looking for a carpenter, because that was kind of my background was carpentry at that time. I mean, I was just 21, but I'd still done a lot of building, a lot of carpentry. So I end up meeting this guy a week later, and he's like, well, I don't know. I don't really need anybody. So I kind of talked him into it, and I went and built a staircase for him that he was doing, and he's like, oh, that's great. And then I stayed with him for 4 years. And it's funny when I look back on that time at the beach, those 7 days, all the connections I made in 2 weeks, to some extent, still are in my life. There was you talk about the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever. Almost everybody from that guy that I first met to even the people that I work with today was just 1 or 2 steps away from my first time going into Santa Barbara. So I worked for him. We built custom homes in Santa Barbara, kind of ocean view custom homes. It was really nice. And then I think I was 25. I said, you know what, I'm gonna get my license. I'm gonna go on my own. And he was very supportive of it. So I teamed up with a guy that I met, and we raised some money, kind of crazy. We were like 20, 23 and 25, and we raised like $1 million and bought a house in Santa Barbara and designed it ourselves, kind of submitted it, put a second story on it, and sold it as a spec. And I lived in it in the construction during the time, and that was it. And then we built a couple other projects. This was all kind of higher end residential. And then the guy that I worked for before, I met his son and ended up working with him. And he was a very big, turned into a very big developer and builder. So I worked with him for close to 15 years on the Central Coast. And we built just an obscene amount of projects, houses and multifamily, and then apartments. And then towards the end of that, again, I said, well, I'm going to give it, or I want to kind of go on my own again. I'd been through all these, and again, it was a privilege. Like, I'd been through all these really big projects and had the opportunity to see them all start to finish. And I really saw a need for a company, and this is kind of what I set out to do, is to fill a niche in development projects where somebody was doing kind of quality control from start to finish and plugging in the gaps. And that's kind of what I kind of got that idea even working back on the East Coast, because we would go in and build a house from start to finish. And I mean, we would go in and clear the lot. We'd cut down trees on the lot and take it all the way to the finish painting, to,
Oh, wow.
to everything. And our crew, the crew that I kind of grew up with, was the same. So when I came to California, it was kind of odd for me that everything, even in smaller single family homes, was broken up into so many categories. And it's
Right.
like, oh, you only do this, and you only do this, and you only do this. And I'm like, guys, like, we're just building a house here,
Yeah.
like we can do a little better. We can move faster, kind of plug in those gaps, because there's a lot of communication that had to happen. It's like,
Right.
okay, this is even with consultants and architects and engineers, not only just the subs and the house itself, but everything from start to finish. So that's where I've kind of, in the past 4 years when I started Soul Construction, that's kind of what we've done, and the clients that we serve is kind of start to finish, more so on development projects, raw land to turnover, whether it be for a sale or for lease or for, tenants moving in, is just looking at all those gaps that people would overlook in the quality control, and just doing it. And it hopefully makes the project smoother and better.
Sure. I am hearing a couple of things from you right now, besides the trucks in the background.
Yeah, you want me to close the door?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
Yeah.
That should be better. That should be better. And I'll try and edit some of that stuff out in post.
Sure.
In post production, but that's all good. Okay. So I just heard a lot of different things. Probably one of the biggest things is that it sounds like on the East Coast things move a lot quicker, and in California people are taking their time because, they got waves to surf, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's one of those things that it sounds like that's kind of your edge, though. Like, that's kind of the edge that you have been able to bring to your part of town, and also the types of developers, investors, and things like that you've been able to work with, is you kind of have that sense of urgency. You have that ability to communicate effectively, efficiently, and also to kind of bring everybody together to get the job done on a quicker level. And that's kind of how you were able to kind of bolster your success up to this point in time. Would you agree with that? Is that kind of more or less the case, or am I off
I
there?
would, yeah. I mean, sense of urgency is one thing, but it's basically, the clients that I work with are mostly developers. So there's just a lot of things, like it's like when I come in, it's nice to have a fresh pair of eyes on stuff. So like this project that we just finished, like I'll give you one example. It had been 2 years in planning and finally pulled the permits. There was a lot to it, and the architect did a great job. It was beautiful, some beautiful homes. But then they took the utility package, from PG&E, and they kind of put it on there, and then the civil engineer, put his stuff on there. And when I step back and look at it, everybody was doing their job, right? But nobody was like putting all the plans together and seeing
Yeah.
how that worked out. So we had these beautiful homes that were going up a hill, but then they had all the utilities, like the panels and everything right on the outside of the corner of the house. The gas meters right outside in the corner. Is like, oh, this is not going to work at
Right.
all. And nobody's really there to catch that. Hopefully the developer does, but the developer's maybe not the builder, And if you hire a GC or someone who's just going to build, they're going to say, well, this is a set of plans. This is my contract. I'm building for plans. Then you start getting down this rabbit hole of change orders, RFIs, going to change the
Right.
schedule, and that's where kind of I come in, because I don't really do that. It's kind of my service is to catch that stuff and just do it and make it happen for a better project in the end.
I think
Um,
that you're the general contractor who, to kind of interject here, you're the type of general contractor who takes true ownership of the whole project, despite, things being part of, you being part of the planning process, not being part of the planning process. I feel like you just kind of take everything as it comes, and once you take it, the buck kind of stops with you. Am I
yeah,
wrong?
100%. Yeah, till the project's complete. Hmm.
Yeah.
And then we kind of, take ownership to an extent of everything that's handed to us, of wherever the plans are, whatever stage it's at, and try to value engineer whatever we can.
Yeah.
And value engineer doesn't necessarily mean everything's less expensive, but just for a better project, for things
Yeah.
to kind of go together smoother or just better for the project.
Talk to me about that a little bit, because I think that value engineering is something that I think general contractors are familiar with, and I think that when homeowners hear it, that just means like, oh, I'm getting cheap selections, right? And developers are probably, they hear it from GCs all the time too. But like, what does a quality value engineering process look like from the perspective
Well,
of a builder?
I'll give you like two examples, and you're right. It doesn't. I guess when people would hear that, you automatically assume that you're going to use, less expensive products, but that's really not the case. Like, we did a project where, and the architect had no fault in it. It was just when it was a hillside home, and they had no access to the upper portion in the back. So we had all these spoils from backfill and digging the foundations. So we just made the back wall a foot and a half taller, took the spoils from that, put it up there, built the pad. Obviously, we talked to the civil, and we got everything approved,
Yeah.
and then put access out into the back. So we saved on export material. We it didn't really cost the project more, but it was just a better use. And when you have consultants and subs that their scope of work is just from A to B,
Yeah.
not all the way from, like, nobody would really look at that unless you're kind of out there with, like I said, like a fresh pair of eyes on the project.
Yep.
Another example is we did a project that had really expensive steel doors and windows, like a crazy custom package, and we went through the motion of, okay, well, there's the back side of the house that nobody on the second floor that nobody's ever going to look at. We can find a window to match that in when from you're never going to be able to see the difference, and those savings you can upgrade your kitchen and your bathroom stuff that you touch
Mm.
and use every single day.
Yep.
So the project design, the intent stayed the same, but that was just kind of a trade-off that worked.
Yeah. That makes sense. Do you find that, I guess, working with developers that, I mean, this is going to be different between obviously developers and designers, but do you find that developers kind of have like a more muted approach when it comes to the design process itself, or is it more so, they're and the reason I ask is because oftentimes when people, I feel like, hear developers, they think like, I'm trying to turn this over and cash flow, right, as quick as I possibly can? Or have you worked with developers who are like pretty involved in the design process,
No,
intentionality, and all that?
no, for sure. Obviously, the cash flow is number one, right? I mean, it
Yeah,
has to be, or else the project wouldn't get done. But yeah, everybody's different. But the developers, if they're doing, we're on the central coast of California, so it's a big investment in time and money to do this. So all of them have an idea for sure because they wouldn't be doing it if they didn't.
right.
So each one is kind of different. They think very strongly of this design or this design. They have something that's either worked for them in the past. But yeah, they definitely all have their thoughts on it and input.
Yeah. Scott, you started Soul Construction with it sounds like with a clear intention to work with developers and bring new types of projects, unique projects, luxury projects
Yeah.
to, the Pismo Beach, Santa Barbara ish area. Um, I guess was that always like your intention when you started this thing, or did it kind of evolve over the years?
It was always kind of there. I do like, higher end residential stuff, but when I had the opportunity to work on some bigger projects, I got the chance to work on a hotel project with, I think I was mentioning to you, with a rooftop pool
Hmm.
that I got to finish out, and that's just it was a lot of fun. I really like that, and this business is hard enough as it is, so you want to do something that you're really interested in. So like I said, even when I was a teenager, I was accustomed to projects from the start to finish, so I never wanted to be really compartmentalized into just doing this,
Yeah.
or just doing one scope in the construction. And I found that there was just a need for that. There was a need for someone to help people put it all together and just and then build it out.
Going from carpenter to entrepreneur, rather from carpenter to business leader slash business founder, is it two completely different skill sets,
Well,
right?
yes and no. I mean, the thing is I've never. I mean, my father was a self-employed, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I kind of grew up with an entrepreneurial, self-employed, like, it was never a job.
It was instilled
And
within you.
yeah, and then even when in California, I mean, I was working with other people, but I was still, I mean, I don't think I've ever really had like a job where you like get a. I don't know. I worked at a ski area and I
Yeah.
worked at a marina through high school, and that's probably the only job that I've had.
Right.
I've just accustomed my whole life has just been doing projects, so it wasn't that big of a stretch. I don't think. And it seems to me that most in the construction industry, the most people who kind of step away from the trades and get into supervision, project management, and try to start on their own. I don't know exactly why, but they're mostly from carpentry, framing background.
Yeah.
I don't really see a lot of tile setters or whatever. I don't know why, but there's not really a lot of people who start out in the plumbing trade who end up, being a general. I mean, maybe there's some, but generally, from what I see, it's more sort of a carpentry thing.
I personally have seen carpentry being like the main squeeze of it. And I just why do you feel like that is? Because I have my own thoughts as to why I feel like that's the case, but from your perspective, like why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think I would guess. I haven't thought about it too much, but I guess when you're a framer or a carpenter, you see something that's nothing. You have a big armful of sticks, right? You can build them, put them up, and you walk away, and there's a house.
Right.
So you start to get that visualization of, okay, well, this is what it's going to look like at the end, and this is how I'm going to finish it off. So you get to see a project, and you just do that exercise all the time, project after project. So you
Yeah.
kind of know where it starts, how to start it, and how to finish it. Where as a tradesman come in, if you're hanging drywall, maybe you don't see that as much.
Yeah, I think that like I said, you spoke to plumbing for a second. And I feel like that plumbing is such a specific part specific trade, right? During, say, like a home building process, or even if you're to do like a remodel project, that it doesn't really allow you to carefully take into consideration like these studs are holding up this wall right now, and like why is that, right? Why does the door go where it's supposed to go? You're not really taking a lot of those things into consideration when you have more specialized trades.
Sure.
And so it is interesting to kind of see that though. But I guess like I'm very curious about this, Scott, because you really could have gone the other route and worked with homeowners, but you chose not to. So it's like we've talked about this a little bit off camera, but like why specifically have you not chosen to work with homeowners and kind of niche down into this specific piece of your company,
Well, because I like
piece
the
of the industry? Sorry.
yeah, I like the project itself. You know, I mean, I have worked for homeowners. I do still. I mean, that's always a part of it. But I do like. I would just prefer to work, you know, on a bigger development project than somebody's like, because that's a whole different world when you're going into somebody's house, right? Like
Yeah.
you're really going in their life and you're remodeling their bathroom or putting addition on. They're living there and they have to move out, and it's just that's just a whole different.
Yeah.
It's just a whole different animal, really.
And I guess this is kind of something to take into consideration because general contractors of all kinds are going to be listening to this show, to this podcast, to this episode, and I think that oftentimes for them, they kind of feel as though. Go ahead, you gotta take that.
No.
Oh, okay. Oftentimes for a lot of general contractors, I think they feel as though they don't want to niche down, because if they niche down, then that means saying no to all of this opportunity that could come up, and maybe the economy crashes, and this happens, and that happens, and all of a sudden I lose all of my workload. But you seem to have a confidence that if you niche down, if you specialize and focus on one specific segment of the marketplace, you can actually grow and make a name for yourself and make more, not just for the company, but a bigger impact on the people that you serve. Why do you feel that way?
Well, I guess well, one note to that is, I mean, when I think about niching down, I mean, in this business, it's going to be the only way I would do that is towards a trade, right?
Right.
So I could either, if I wanted to, I could either be a framer or a concrete guy, or you know, I build pools, and I have a general engineering license. So I've played with it in the past. It's like, well, I could, you know, kind of specialize in building pools or whatnot, but I just don't really have the interest in doing that. And the projects that I want to, that I do kind of do, they're multi-year long projects.
But that is a niche, though.
Yeah, yeah, for
That
sure.
is a niche in and of itself because even your customer base is niche. Like, it's not
Hmm.
like you're working with all types of customers. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that it keeps you open because it's just there's residential and there's commercial and there's mixed use too.
Yeah.
So it's still a pretty wide open net.
Mm.
You know, it could be a multifamily, it could be like the project that I'm on today is 8 single family homes. So yeah, I mean, there's still kind of a wide net to go.
Yeah. I think that a lot of GCs kind of scare themselves away from the ability to. I mean, you definitely. I'll put it this way, Scott. You have learned what to say no to. Am I right?
Yeah, well, one more comment on that too with
Yeah.
the
Go ahead.
homeowners is homeowners are generally you work with them one time,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of homeowners who are going to build, you know, like multiple multi-million dollar homes. You know,
Right.
you're gonna work with a homeowner one time, and maybe they're gonna refer you, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
With a developer or a development company, it could be years and years,
Hmm.
project after project.
And so it's more consistency that you
It can
find.
be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Challenges is obviously something that every general contractor faces, and I know that as you've kind of started the company and been running the company, you've run into your own unique challenges, whether it be on the sales side, marketing side, and maybe it's on the perhaps even on the recruiting side. Um, Talk me through some of those challenges and kind of how you've overcome those things.
Well, challenges on the projects or challenges in running the
I think
business?
the business side. I think that that's like the unique piece here because both of those kind of bleed into each other, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, there's no shortage of challenges at all. I mean, if it's really tough. This industry is really tough. It's tough to be a builder. It's tough to be a general, and it's tough to get projects done. Certainly in California, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot of tenacity, and you really have to have a reason why you do it, or really feel compelled to see a project through because it's I mean, it's people problems, it's financial problems, it's technical problems. I mean, you name it, man. You show up to work, and there's going to be a small battle to fight.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would say, generally, I've been pretty fortunate to have good people that I work with, and like the people that work for me or my employees, I've generally known for a long time. Um, I don't really have any people that I've worked with that haven't kind of been vetted or that I know of. So I've been very fortunate. It's not like a big turnover, not like a bad apple that's kind of come in. So I feel good on that side. Cash flow and financial stuff is always a challenge, especially
Yeah.
on projects that last so long. It's not like a quick get in, get it done, get out, and get paid.
Yeah.
It's
Things are drawn
sometimes
out.
it's yeah, yeah, it can get drawn out. And then there's always challenges too, which is technical challenges, which would be civil or structural or design or finding ways to put that together, which is kind of what we specialize in or what we do. But there's always challenges there.
Yeah. Well, Scott, I think that there are going to be GCs that listen to this and they're going to be kind of, they'll take an insight away from, this episode altogether. But I kind of want to wrap it by asking you, if there is a piece of advice that you could share with a general contractor who maybe was in the same position that you were 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, what is that one piece of advice that you would give them?
You know, uh, I would say that I wouldn't hyper focus on one particular project if it's good or bad, or try to put a lot of weight on that. It's kind of just project after project and the whole picture. You have
Yeah.
to be able to look back and be kind of happy with what you've done and have satisfaction that you can go back and look at that project. Because a lot of like when I look back in milestones in my life, it's not necessarily like the year. If I look at a year, it's like, okay, well, this project was going on and this. So if you have a tough client or a project that doesn't go like you thought it should, you want to it's very easy. It's very easy to get overwhelmed or distracted, and
Yeah.
you kind of just have to put that away, kind of compartmentalize and put that away, and just know what you're doing is what you want to be doing, and
Yeah.
that you're doing something that's beneficial and moving stuff forward and building stuff.
Heck yeah.
And if you're in this industry, hopefully you get a sense of reward out of that, and it's worth it.
Love that.
Yeah.
Scott, it sounds to me like you have a clear direction for where it is that you want to take this company. What's the future for Soul Construction?
Well, it's to continue to do projects like I'm doing now, and then grow, and then have kind of the lifestyle for not just me, but the people that work with me too,
Yeah.
to be able to enjoy the where we live on the Central Coast, enjoy the beach, and make money and do successful projects.
Heck yeah.
So it's more in different projects too. A variety is always nice.
It sounds like your business is focused around we more than me. Is that right?
Yeah, there's not a lot of us, but it's always been a we.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Um, guys, this episode has been brought to you by not just Soul Construction, but it's been brought to you by the wisdom and the insights of Scott himself. I do recommend you guys to connect with Scott and find his website. Check out his Instagram page, where actually I was able to connect with Scott myself, and he posts pictures and things like that of some of his projects as well. And Scott, is there anywhere that I am missing as to where people can connect with you and find you specifically?
No, that's really it. Just IG is the main place. Because at
IG.
this, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you were saying at this point?
Oh, at this point, I we don't do a lot of marketing
Yeah.
because we just have a small handful of clients that are just kind of repeat clients. But we will be marketing kind of more in the next year.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Well, guys, check out solconst.com. Am I right?
You
Yes?
got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Soul Construction as the name of the company. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. And everybody who's listening to this show, if you did take something away from it, and make sure that you leave us some feedback, leave us a comment below. All of Scott's details will be in the show notes. And Scott, we are eternally grateful. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Lev.
Cheers.